I am 78 years old. I've lived almost my entire life on a rural ranch. I buried my husband, watched my children grow and scatter. And today, sitting in this weathered wooden chair, I carry something heavier than any water bucket I've ever lifted. Regrets. If I could live it all over again. There are things I would never do. And there are others I would have done so much more. Sit down. Because what I've learned might spare you from a pain that takes decades to truly understand. The wind still blows here, just as it did 40 years ago. The sunset still paints the sky in shades of orange. But the voices no longer echo like they used to. If you love real, profound stories filled with lessons on love, family, and faith, subscribe to the channel now. And tell me in the comments, have you ever regretted something that took you years to realize? Today, I am opening my heart. Not as someone perfect, but as someone who lived, stumbled, loved, and learned. And maybe, just maybe, my words will find you at exactly the right moment. I was 19 when I arrived at the ranch as a bride. The house was small, the fence always needed mending, and money. Well, money was never aplenty. But there was something I rarely see anymore: simple hope. We woke before the sun. I'd brew the coffee while he went out to tend to the horses. The scent of homemade bread mingled with damp earth was the soundtrack of my youth. I believed happiness meant having everything organized, everything clean, everything functioning. I wanted to be the perfect wife, the perfect mother, the homemaker who could handle it all. And for many years, I thought I was succeeding. Our children were born there. They grew up running barefoot, learning to milk cows and respect the silence of the countryside. At night, we sat at the table together. It was simple. It was hard. It was beautiful. But today, looking back, I realize that while I was trying to keep everything perfect, I let moments slip away. I was present, but I wasn't always whole. And that difference, I only understood decades later. My husband was not a man of many words. He said good morning with a nod and I love you by fixing something broken. His love came in the form of effort, in calloused hands, in nights of half-slept rest. But I wanted words. I wanted flowers sometimes. I wanted to hear that he was proud of me. I wanted him to notice when I was weary. And instead of talking, I fell silent. For years, I harbored small resentments. They weren't grand fights, they were accumulated silences. And silence, my dear, weighs more than any argument. Today I know he loved the only way he knew how. And I failed to learn that language. If I could go back, I would have asked more, hugged more, demanded less perfection. Because one day, he went out to work as he always did, and he didn't come home for dinner. And all the words I waited to hear could never be spoken again. Raising children on the ranch wasn't easy. There were chores, responsibilities, discipline. I believed I was preparing strong men and women for the world. And I was. But I was also teaching them something without realizing it. That work came before everything else. How many times did my children call me to see something simple? And I replied, not now. How many times did I say I was too busy? I thought there would be time. Time to talk. Time to listen to long stories. Time to hug without rushing. But time, it does not wait. One day, I noticed the bedrooms were empty. The small boots were no longer by the door. The table had empty chairs. They grew up well. They are good adults. But sometimes when we meet, I feel there are memories that could have been deeper. If I could do it differently, I would have stopped more often. I would have sat on the floor. I would have laughed at the chaos. Because work ends. But childhood, it never returns. There is something that almost destroyed my marriage. And it wasn't a lack of money, nor the hard labor, nor the hardships of winter. It was pride. There was one especially harsh winter. The cattle fell ill, bills piled up, and exhaustion turned small differences into vast distances. We argued over something trivial. I don't even remember why today, but I remember the silence that followed. I waited for him to apologize. He waited for me to do the same. We slept turned away from each other for 3 nights. 3 nights that felt like years. And even wanting to give in, I didn't. Until, on the 4th morning, he left before dawn without saying a word. While washing the dishes, I felt a tightening in my chest. A thought pierced through me: what if this is the last time I see him? In that instant, I understood something that took decades to ripen inside me. Pride never builds bridges. It only raises walls. When he returned that afternoon, I went to the door. I didn't wait. I didn't argue. I simply embraced him. If I could teach young women anything, it would be this: do not go to sleep nourishing your pride. Because sometimes, the price of it is far too high. I always thought we would have more time. He left just as he always did. He kissed my forehead in a hurry. He said he'd be back before sunset. But that day, the horse returned alone. The sound of hooves in the yard still echoes in my memory. I knew even before anyone told me. Something inside me collapsed. The accident was quick, they said. He didn't suffer. But I suffered. I suffered for the words I didn't say. For the times I criticized instead of thanking him. For the nights I chose silence over affection. In the empty house, every object screamed of memories. His chair on the porch. His hat hanging up. His boots at the door. And then I understood the greatest truth of my life. We always think there will be a tomorrow. But there is no promise of tomorrow. If I could go back in time, I would have said, I love you every single day. Even on the hard days. Especially on the hard days. Because when someone leaves, we don't take regrets in our suitcase. It is those who stay behind who carry that weight. There were nights when I thought I couldn't go on. The bed felt too large. The silence, too heavy. The future, too uncertain. It was through the pain that my faith stopped being a tradition and became my sustenance. I had always prayed with my children before bed. I always gave thanks for the food. But after he was gone, my prayers changed. They weren't beautiful anymore. They were raw. They were wept. Sometimes, they were nothing but silence. I asked, why? And I didn't receive clear answers. I received strength. Strength to wake up. Strength to keep tending to the ranch. Strength to not let my heart harden. I learned that faith doesn't prevent pain. It prevents pain from destroying us. If there's one thing I did right in my life, it was keeping God at the center of our home. Not with perfection, but with sincerity. And it was that faith that taught me that love doesn't end with a goodbye. It just changes shape. Today, sitting on this porch, with 78 years and more memories than plans, I think about what I would do differently. I would have laughed more at the mess. I would have hugged for no reason. I would have stopped working to listen to my children's long, nonsensical stories. I would have taken more photos, kept more letters, said, I love you more often, even without a response. I would have understood sooner that perfection is an illusion that steals real moments. But I also know what I would do exactly the same. I would choose that simple, hard-working man all over again. I would raise my children in the countryside once more. I would teach values above money, because despite the mistakes, there was so much love. And perhaps that is the greatest lesson I can leave behind. You don't need a perfect life. You need a life lived with presence. Don't wait for old age to learn what matters. Start today. Of all my regrets, there is one that still visits my nights. My eldest son was always different. Inquisitive. A dreamer. He wanted to know the world beyond the ranch fences. I, fearing I would lose him, tried to hold him back with rules that were far too harsh. We argued the day he decided to leave. I said words that mothers should never say when they are afraid. He left with a small suitcase and a heart too big to fit in this place. Years passed with short phone calls and rare visits. There was love, but there was also distance. It was only after his father's death that I called and said something simple: I miss you, and I am sorry. There was no long speech, only silence on the other end of the line, followed by a sob I would recognize at any age. Sometimes, what separates a family isn't a lack of love. It's a lack of humility. If I could go back, I would have supported his dreams with less fear. Because children aren't raised to stay. They are raised to fly. Chapter 9. The small things that were grand. When we are young, we think the grand moments define life. The wedding, the birth of children, the achievements. But today I know, life is made of small Tuesdays that no one photographs. The smell of coffee at 5 in the morning. The sound of boots on the floorboards. A laugh during a simple dinner. A quick hug before sleep. Those were the treasures. Not the money. Not the recognition. Not the perfect house. The small things sustained my soul when the big things departed. If you are listening to this now, look around. Perhaps the ordinary moment you are living today is the precious memory you will yearn for tomorrow. Do not underestimate the ordinary. It is the true miracle. Chapter 10. What really matters. I spent years trying to keep everything under control. The clean house. The disciplined children. The respected husband. The functioning ranch. But in the end, control is an illusion. What remains are not the tasks completed. It is the connections built, the love shown, the forgiveness offered, the words spoken at the right time. Today, as the sun sets behind these mountains, I don't think about the paid bills or the mended fences. I think about the embraces. I think about the times I chose to love despite the exhaustion. And I think about the times I could have loved more. If you still have time, use it. Because one day, you too will be sitting and looking back. And all you will wish for is to have loved without holding back. If my voice reached you today, perhaps it wasn't by chance. Maybe you still have the chance to do what I postponed. To ask for forgiveness. To hug someone a little tighter. To say, I love you, without waiting for the perfect moment. Don't wait for the horse to return alone to realize the value of the one who left the house that morning. Life is not long. It is fragile. And love is the only thing that crosses through time. If this story touched your heart, write in the comments, love comes first. And tell me, what would you do differently if you could go back in time? Subscribe to the channel to hear more stories that remind us of what truly matters. Here, we don't just tell memories. We save future regrets. I'll see you at the next sunset.